Well, hello there, YouTube. This is really the first vlog attempt I've made where it's just me talking. I do have a couple of videos where I am paramotoring and I'm kind of vlogging about my paramotor experience. But I really wanted to diversify my channel a little bit and get into some more just thoughts, just Adam thoughts. And this is a great way to do that. I've been watching some different channels lately of people who have been vlogging, and there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of personal experience that people have gone through that has value and I can relate to, and I follow them because I can kind of vibe on their level a little bit. So I started thinking, well, I have one of those brains that's a little bit different, and I think the people that understand my way of thinking, there's a lot of them in a lot of categories, but there's very few in many categories as well. So it'll be interesting to see what people think as they progress through some of these videos to see if I'm relatable to them or if I'm a little bit crazy. I came across this categorization of the Sigma male. And if you haven't found this yet, go ahead and do a search and you'll see videos about the Sigma male. And basically, psychologists have branched out from the alpha beta male to this new Sigma male. And there's probably other categories as well too, but I really relate to that type of a person who is kind of a loner, who places a lot of value on self-development. Typically they are self-employed. They struggle working for people because of the way their mind works. They are leaders in a lot of areas, but they can really fit different roles as long as they feel valued. Sometimes they struggle in relationships, especially if you don't have somebody who understands the mindset of a Sigma male. So if you have a chance, go out and do a little bit of research on that, or even other categories, and try to define or find a way to define who you are as a person. Because once you do that, once you find clarity in who you are, it's amazing the way your mind kind of opens up. And you can start focusing in on your strengths instead of beating yourself up for your weaknesses. So, this channel is going to get into a lot of different thoughts, and I do have to try to come up with a way to really organize it so I'm not just rambling on and rambling on. Some of the YouTube channels that I listen to, a lot of times I just listen. I'll be in the car and I'll have it playing. It's just somebody speaking, but listening to their words and trying to pull out relatable content, you know? And then some of it I hear and I'm like, I would really like to hear more than that, or I bet other people would like a little more clarification. So that's what I'm kind of hoping I can do here. And I hope to be able to compliment some of the people I have followed by bringing them into the channel or bringing up some of the things they've said and elaborating a little bit on that, just with the way I think or the way I see those situations. But anyway, the first thing I wanted to start out today with is part of being an individual, part of being somebody who really focuses in on themselves and self-development, and you like to isolate, is you really have to be able to take on projects and tasks on your own. I really don't like people coming out to my home. There's a lot of jobs that I wish I could just hire out for, but I don't like the idea of somebody coming to my property or even being in my home. So I figure out how to do things myself. Now, one of the things I hope to get into throughout this channel is showing you how I built this house. So I'm in my office now. This is part of a home I built. It took me 2.5 years to build it, and I did about 92% somewhere in there of the work myself. There's a few things I did hire out for, and I'll explain that as we talk about that process. But that was a big job for me, and you'll see from the home, it's a pretty good size home for me and my daughters, and it was quite the accomplishment. But going back to what I was saying is, I like to learn things myself, but I have two personality characteristics that kind of work against me. One is I'm very cheap. Now, cheap isn't a negative thing in a lot of ways. I like to say frugal, or I like to do a lot of research before I spend my money on something. So cheap, I'll just use that term, and capable. Now, when you're cheap and you're capable, that can really help you. For one thing, I can go out and find a good deal on something, and I can do a task on my own, which would then save me a lot of money, right? So being cheap saves me money in the long run. Being capable allows me to do it and not have to pay someone else to do it. How it hurts me is that there are a lot of things I don't want to do. There are a lot of tasks that I would much rather hire out for and have somebody come in and do that task for me. I would rather spend the money. It's like, hey, that costs $500, saves me a day's worth of work. Go at it. But when you're cheap and you're capable, you're like, $500, do I really want to pay somebody that much? I can get this done in a day, and then I end up doing it myself. So anyway, if you can relate to that, I welcome any comments on how you've been able to overcome some of that, because, like I said, there's pros and cons to it. So, for example, let me give you a quick example of this. So I went on Amazon and I was looking for some microphones. Now, this microphone that I have here is a mic that I have had for many years, as I just bumped into it. And it was on this little stand right here, this little tripod stand. And I didn't want it to be sitting on the desk. I'd have to lean into it to speak. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to order another one. That's me being not cheap, right? So going outside of my window and saying, I'm going to order this online. I saw it was like $35 for an extendable one. Well, as I'm looking at it online, I'm like, well, I've got one of those old lamps, those old lamps that fit on the end of these retractable and pivotable stands. So I'm like, what if I took that lamp off, which I don't use anymore? So I cut the lamp off, I unscrewed it. I unscrewed the hole here, and then I found a bracket so I could fit it on there, and I screwed this up, and I made basically the exact same thing I could have bought for $35. It didn't take me very long. So in that respect, being cheap, looking at a $35 thing and saying, hey, that's not worth $35 to me, I can make something cheaper or use something I've already got, and then being capable. So in that respect, I would say that's an advantage, right? It just saved me some money, plus I made use of something I already had. You'll see throughout these different videos, that there are disadvantages to that. We'll explain that more. But I think it works pretty good here, and I do like this microphone because it captures the voice better, takes away any outside or ambient noise. So hopefully that helps. So what am I hoping to get out of this channel? I guess in a lot of ways I'm just trying to get my voice out there. Maybe I should say I'm trying to get things out of my head. You know how we have thoughts and they just kind of linger, and you don't have really an outlet. I've got some friends. I've got a few friends who are very smart, and we think on similar lines, so it always helps to communicate with them. But I feel honestly like there's an opportunity to help more people, to help bring clarity to topics that maybe there isn't clarity. I want to point out something that I've just kind of thought about recently, is we live in this search box society now. Having the internet accessible to us on our phones, at home, any opportunity you have, there's a search box. And you have a thought or an idea, or you want to look something up, you want to validate something, you want to just mess around and search dumb stuff, you can always search it. It's accessibility on that level hurts us, I believe, as a culture, because it takes away your ability to just have your brain process information. I've gotten upset with my girlfriend a couple times because we'll be talking and I'll say something like, I wonder when so-and-so movie was made. I feel like it was probably in the 80s or something. And she'd say, oh, let me check. And she'd pull out her phone and search it out. And I would say, I don't need to know that badly. It's just a conversation. Like, I'm just curious, like in my head, probably somewhere in the 80s. It doesn't bother me not to know specifically when, but it was just we're talking about it. But immediately our brains go to, I can answer that question because I can search for it. And what that does, you would think it would be a great thing, right? I've heard that many times, that the internet could be the most valuable tool in our society to make us stronger and better and more capable. But in many ways, it's hurt us. It has the opposite effect. And just taking away individual thought and our ability to process information and figure things out on our own is taken away. I remember I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I graduated from high school in 1994. So my first car was a 1984 Ford Escort. They didn't have YouTube back then. When I had to figure out something with my car, I remember I broke a lug nut off once. And I'm like, I have no idea how to take a lug nut out. I didn't realize it was an actual bolt that went all the way through the rotor, and then you'd just screw the nut onto that. When I busted it, the threads came out and the entire lug bolt stripped. So what did I do? Well, I pulled my tire off, and I was looking around, and I looked at the back, and I hit it with a hammer, and finally I saw that it pushed through. And that's how I figured out how that process worked. Yeah, it took me about 45 minutes. I think I sliced my finger on something. It was rusty and dirty. But you learned how to do things by just using your brain, by looking at something and trying to troubleshoot. What do we do now? Type it in. There it is. That information is right there in front of us. Now, of course, there's advantages to that, right? That saves us time. It saves us headache. It saves us from making a mistake, which later would cost us more money. So those are some of the advantages, but what about on the intellectual side? Are we hurting ourselves? Does it take away creative or productive thought? So anyway, this search bar society that we live in, this generation, and I don't want to say generation as it's a certain type of people, because it's all of us. We're all using it. I want to talk more about things like that and just hear people's comments or thoughts on that, because it's one of those topics that is having an effect on us one way or another. So anyway, I also want to pull together some of my personal projects. I've got a couple cars that I really like that I'd like to do reviews on. So this channel, what I'm hoping for is to just make it kind of unique, okay? Just about my life, how I got to this point. I don't know how deep I plan to go into personal things. A lot of people have told me in the past that I should offer my advice and wisdom because I've overcome some very difficult things in my life when I was younger and, in early adulthood. Those things, I think, in a lot of ways have made me stronger, have made me think a certain way, have kind of separated or removed me from society, some of the thorns of society. So we'll see as we go along if that's something I want to get into. But at this point, I'm just excited to have an opportunity to share some thoughts and people who have comments or things like that and we want to talk more about. I'm perfectly open to that. It would be interesting to have a Zoom call or a Skype call with some people and just kind of get some thoughts that way too. So who knows where it's going to go. It's May 2021. No, it's not May. It's March 2021. I don't even know what month it is. March 2021. Anyway, I just got done coaching my girls' soccer team, and we had practice tonight, and it's another awesome day. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. A big component of my life now at the age of 45 and trying to find peace and harmony in my existence is through some meditation, through prioritizing what's most important, and finally just being happy. Getting rid of the small petty things in life. And I know some of you throughout this video are going to maybe not criticize, I don't want to say, but not take what I'm saying as seriously because I have a very blessed life right now. Over time, I have built my life through years and years of planning and preparation and growth to being in a position now where I live a good life. And I promise you one thing is I do not take that for granted. I recognize how blessed I am. I recognize that I take responsibility for all that because I worked very, very hard. And like I said earlier, I've overcome some very difficult things in my life to get to this point. But I still don't take it for granted. And we shouldn't do that. Just life in general, just existence, just having blood pumping through your veins is something we want to be appreciative of. So anyway, we'll get more into that kind of stuff too. This is kind of just an intro video. Looking forward to more. You guys have an awesome day. We'll talk with you soon.